Alright, you may be wondering how I got this awesome Polybar configuration here at the top of my screen. I mean, it's actually not all that amazing, but I will show you how to set up yours to your heart's content in this video. So, any kind of status bar you want, you can have with Polybar, and it's actually really easy to configure with Polybar. You don't need to learn a whole bunch of shell scripting and a whole bunch of complicated configurations. It's pretty simple once you wrap your head around it, so in this video I'll just show you how to do it. Alright, so I'm going to assume that you already have Polybar installed via your favorite package manager. And once you have it installed, not much is going to happen until you actually set it up. So we need two files to start off. We need a configuration file and the launch script. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a configuration file. And you probably don't want to make this completely from scratch. That could take a long time. So what you can do is you can copy the sample configuration file, which is stored in your /user/share/doc/polybar/config. At least that's where it is in Arch Linux. I assume it's the same on other systems, but you can open that up, and then we have this huge sample Polybar configuration, and basically you can just copy this over. It has a whole bunch of stuff that you can look over, but let me just actually go to my configuration file, and I can kind of walk you through everything there. So let's exit out of this. And so what you want to do is you want to create a new directory inside your .config directory called Polybar, of course, and we want to create a config file. And so you can basically just cp this whole thing right here over to your Polybar folder in your .config directory. And so I've already done this. I don't want to do it again. So let me just open this up. So this is everything that powers my current Polybar right here. And I'll kind of just walk you through all the configuration options so you're not confused about anything. So first off, we have these colors right here. And these are basically variables that you can use in different parts of your configuration file. For example, down here I have colors.background. And this is just referencing this right here and all of these colors right here. So of course you can put hexadecimal codes right here. FFF is white, of course. I have a red right here. But if you want transparency, then you can also add these alpha characters at the beginning of your hex color. So basically what these two are doing right here is this is hexadecimal, so of course 00 is going to be completely transparent, FF is going to be completely opaque. And so right now I want this completely transparent, so I'm just putting 00. But if I wanted this to be like a gray, maybe like 50% would be something like 80. And then the rest, we can make it black. Let's reload. And as you can see, is now like 50% transparent black. But I just want to keep this completely transparent. Of course, you can do that to other things as well. But you can use these colors different places inside your configuration file with this curly bracket syntax with this $sign here. Just type colors, dot the name of your color, and you're fine. You can add as many of these as you want. So first things first, in order to make your bar, you need to give your bar a name. So I have two bars right here. You only really need one, but I call this one top. As you can see, it's on the top of my screen. And you can name it whatever you want, just bar / whatever name you want. Bottom equals false is just saying that it's on the top of the screen. And you can also assign different monitors here if you have a multi-monitor setup. As you can see, I have two bars right here. I have a top external for my external monitor, but if you want to configure all these multi-monitor setups, then I have a whole separate video on how to do that, but I'll just be going over the main Polybar in this video. So of course we have the background, which is going to be the background color, the border size and the border color. If for some reason you want to have a border around your bar, you can have padding right and padding left, which I'm sure you can guess will give different spaces to different sides of your Polybar. I want to have this a little bit away from the edge of the screen, which is why I added 2 as my padding right. And you can add a margin between the different modules. So in your Polybar, you're going to have different modules. For example, here I have a date time module, Wi-Fi, battery life, and volume module. And we can make the spaces between those different by, of course, increasing these values to say 4, reload that, and now there's much more of a space in between those. Okay, and so now let's get to fonts. So inside your Polybar, you can have different fonts. Obviously, your first font will want to be the main font that you use for your Polybar. I want to use this monospace font called Fira Code, and so that's giving me the font right here. And I'm also using the nerd font, which gives you a whole bunch of extra glyphs, which is why I have this Wi-Fi symbol, this clock right here, and all these different things. But maybe you just have a normal font, just a normal monospace font, but you want to add other glyphs like emojis or some icons from an icon font. And so what you can do is you can put a single font at the top here, and then add as many fonts as you want with 0, 1, 2, 3. And then what Polybar will do is it'll just keep going down the list until it finds a font that can render the glyph that it wants. So if you have an emoji here, okay, maybe it won't be found in your first font, but maybe in your second font you can add some emoji font like this. And so this will basically just keep going down the list until it finds some font that can be used. So a lot of people add something like Font Awesome, which is a popular icon font, material icon font, and just an emoji font if you want to have all these different glyphs available to you. For me, I'm just using a single nerd font, which is honestly probably all that you need, and I'll show you a little bit later how to work with nerd fonts. This is what I recommend if you want to make icons in your Polybar, but maybe you want to use emojis or something else instead. And we have modules left and modules right. Like I said, these modules here, as you'll see as we scroll down a little bit, they're all defined later on in the file, but you can choose which modules you want to have on the left side of your screen and the right side of your screen, and even center as well. If you want to add modules center, you can also include a few more here if you want. But for me, I'm using BSPWM. This is showing me all the available desktops I have in my window manager. X window, which will show you the title of the current window you're on. So in this case, Alacrity, which is my terminal. In this case, the title of my browsing tab right here. And modules right is just date, the Wi-Fi, battery, and pulse audio, which I'm sure you can guess what those all do. I'll go over some more later in the video. And then just this WM restack, which is just something so that Polybar doesn't appear over my windows if I go into full screen mode. This is just saying, okay, if you use BSPWM, configure the windows properly so we don't have any issues. And as you can see, this is not many options, but your number one resource for setting up a Polybar is by far going to be the Polybar Wiki here on the GitHub. I'll link this in the description, but everything that you need is in this wiki right here. So I can't cover everything possible, but everything possible is basically in this wiki right here. So in order to set up your bar, you're going to want to go to configuration here, and down here they have, I think, pretty much every possible option right here with an explanation of every single one. So this is what I use to set up my Polybar, and you probably want something a little bit more complicated than just a basic Polybar like this. So you can look here if you want every single option possible. You can have rounded corners on your border if you want. You can have a separator between each module. So if you're having problems setting up your Polybar and you need a little bit more help, then I would definitely check out this wiki right here. But that's all for my bar, so let's move on to some modules right here. So this is just my external bar. Like I said, you can add as many bars as you want. You can even add multiple bars for the same screen. Maybe you want to have a bar on the top and the bottom. Listen, you do you. But this is just my external one. Like I said, I have a video on an external monitor if you want to set it up. And now for all these modules, these are all going to be included in your sample configuration file. So you'll have the X window here, which is this name right here. And most of these will actually work out of the box. For example, I didn't change this X window module at all. This is just how it standard came out of the box. But you can go through and change some things, like maybe for your window manager right here, you want to change the background for maybe the highlighted ones. So for the focused background, I have this background alt color right here, which is giving me this dark blue right here. And so again, the wiki is going to be your best friend with this. It has all the default modules right here, and it'll explain them really well. So for example, if we wanted to see the Wi-Fi down here, the WLAN, you can go to, let's see, you can go to the network. I just renamed it. You can rename these as much as you want if you want. And all the settings are going to be down here with an explanation of how everything works. And it's useful to go over everything because not everything works out of the box. For example, if you're using Wi-Fi, it'll probably have the wrong interface for your device. So you want to like manually check with this command right here and see which interface you're using. So you don't just want to take all the standard options out of the box. It's worthwhile to read this and see how to configure it specifically. And I don't want to cover all that in this video, that would be pretty long. But just some basic things would be the interval. This is going to be how often this gets updated. So every 3 seconds it'll check the Wi-Fi again and then update this module. Like if you connect to a new Wi-Fi, then you might have to wait maximum 3 seconds for this to update. Same for the battery, you can set like interval for how often to check the percentage. And you probably don't want it to be running every single second because that could be kind of resource intensive. Probably not for some small script like this, but every 3 seconds is more than enough for how often this module really needs to update. I'm not changing Wi-Fi that often, and I don't need it to update within milliseconds. As we can see, this date module is updating every 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, it'll update the time right here. And what you can do here is you can also set a format. So this is going to be the format for how it displays the date time. And we have the label down here. So this is going to show the time and then the date. Of course, you can see more info on the date page here. But each module will have a label, and you can also format it. And I would stick anything additional that you want inside this format here. So for example, I want this clock icon right here. And if you want an emoji or something, you can also paste that in there. And then that'll just appear before the label right here, which is the time and the date. So let me show you how I set up my icons. I use something called Nerd Fonts. And you can download these maybe from your package manager or something like that. Maybe from the GitHub, maybe from this nerdfonts.com. But you can download a lot of popular monospace programming fonts that you might use for your terminal or something, but it comes with a whole bunch of extra icons. So Font Awesome, dev icons, weather icons, all this stuff that you could possibly need. So instead of using a whole bunch of different icon fonts, I just use this one nerd font, which has everything, and then just set that as my singular font. And when I want to add an icon, what I do is I come here. For example, I wanted a clock here, so you can search for clock. And it'll show you any kind of clock that you want. And so you can copy the icon here and then paste it in here. And as long as you're using a nerd font, it'll display correctly. And that's how I have all these different icons in here. And you can do the same with any other icon font, provided you have the fonts loaded correctly in the bar that I showed you before. Then they'll all display correctly as long as you copy the glyph. If you don't want to copy from this website, there's other programs that you can use to search for glyphs. In this fonts here, something like GNOME character map. If you want a GUI interface where you can select icons, I don't personally need it. I just copy from the Nerd Fonts website because I'm kind of lazy. And you can also have different ramp values. So for example, for the battery, I don't just want it to have a singular icon because I want it to kind of show me if it's empty, if it's half full, something like that. So you can use this ramp capacity, at least for the battery. Different modules will also have ramp. And this is just like different states from 0 to 100. And so I can add all these different icons. I think you can go as high as you want if you have even smaller differences between these battery icons if you want. And what you can also do is you can change the color of these. So for example, I want whenever it's capacity 0 or like 20% left, then I want it to turn red to let me know that my battery is almost out. So you can add this dash foreground in order to color it red. And of course, after it's over 20%, then I can change it to the primary color, which is white, so I don't get a red icon anymore. But you can do a lot of useful things like this. You can have format charging, format discharging, so you have different formats whenever you're plugged in or not plugged in. And yeah, like I said, this is all within the wiki right here, so if this is confusing or you want to see a comprehensive guide for everything, you can just click this and it'll show you everything that you possibly need to know. Also, if you want to change the background of these, you can do that with, you can change different parts of it, like if you just want to change the label, which is this 84% here, then we can say label, and then you'd add the current state, so let's say for me it's charging right now, and then background. So whenever the label is charging, the background should be black. If we reload this, then yes, the label is now black. Maybe we want the whole thing to be black, so we can do format charging background, and that whole thing is black now. And you can change this to everything that you want. You can have a different color for discharging, a different color for full if you want. So that's how to add a background on each of these modules if you want to. I like mine to be transparent, so I won't add that. But that's basically it for the modules. And like I said, you can just check all these if you want a reference guide. But one more thing is you can also add custom modules. And you can do that using bash scripting. Even if you don't know that much about shell scripting, there is a repo here with a bunch of sample Polybar scripts. So there's a bunch of useful things like you could say how many packages are in your package manager that need to be updated. And you can just look through here. Maybe you want notifications from Reddit about your Reddit account. Up to you. But in order to make a basic script, what you can do is module / whatever you want. So let's make a script that says hello inside your Polybar right here. So let's say type is equal to custom / script. This is going to be for all your scripts. And then you can pass the exec command. And you can leave a link to wherever your script is located. Like say .scripts / the name of your script, of course. But just as an example, we can just type a super basic shell script. Say echo hello in here. And this is a bash script, so this will work. And you can also say interval if you want it to update every X seconds. So let's say update every 5 seconds. Not like anything's going to be changing. And now we need to add this to our modules. So let's just add the hello module, reload this. And as you can see, we now have the word hello here. So depending on your bash scripting capabilities, you can add pretty much whatever functionality you want. Or like I said, you can just look in this Polybar scripts. And even if it doesn't have exactly what you need, you can just kind of use this as an example and just copy this and then maybe change a few things to how you'd like it to be if you're not that familiar with bash scripting. But yeah, basically just echo something and it'll display here. All right, so now we have a Polybar configuration file, hopefully. Hopefully you have that all set up. Now what we need is a Polybar launch script. So we want to create a new file called launch.sh. Make it a bash script with this /bin/sh. So terminate all running polybars with this command, and then we want to wait until all the polybar processes have been shut down, just to make sure we're not creating multiple polybars. So I'll leave a link to this in the description as well if you just want to copy this. And then finally we want to launch our polybar with polybar top. This is just the name of my polybar. If you remember, you can name it to anything you want to, but this is just the name of mine. And then this ampersand character right here. And this right here is just saying if I have an external monitor connected, then start up another polybar on that external screen. Like I said, I have a whole nother video on this if you want to check it out. But once you're done with that, you just want to save that. And then you do want to give this executable permissions with chmod +x. Of course, do that to your polybar. Give it executable permissions. And then you can now add this to your window manager configuration. So if you're using i3, then you can add this to your i3 config. But I'm using BSPWM. So I can just add this. Actually, it's inside this startup script right here. But all this startup script is basically doing is running a few commands along with .config /polybar /launch.sh. So once you have that in, then it'll start it up every time you start up the computer. You might have to use something a little bit different if you're using i3. I forget what it is because I don't use i3. I forget where it is exactly, but if you're using i3, you can figure that out. I'm using BSPWM, so you guys are on your own. Sorry, but it's not too difficult. Okay, but if this is a lot of information to process and you don't want to go through and set up all these different things yourself, you can kind of use this cheat sheet right here called Polybar Themes. I'll leave a link to this repo in the description. But what this is if you don't want to configure everything yourself, if you want to use somebody else's configuration, and it can look something like this. This is pretty cool. You can have all your different desktops here. You can have music. You can have packages with all these pretty colors without having to configure anything. Basically, you just copy these folders here in the repo into your Polybar configuration. Like, let's say we want this color blocks theme. You can go and browse a whole bunch of different themes. There's tons of them. And you just add all this to your Polybar, basically. There's a whole installation guide. and you need to install all these dependencies to make everything work correctly, like all these fonts and app launcher and color theme, all these different things. But yeah, if you're not feeling creative enough to make your own, then you can just use one of these Polybar themes right here, because going through all these configuration files can be a little bit boring. So this is an easier way to do it if you want to go that way. That's everything you need to know about configuring Polybar. Now you can make your own nice status bar and go show it off on Reddit.